This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform where entrepreneurs can easily create and customize their own personal and professional website. More on Squarespace later in the video. Welcome back to Biographics. I'm your host, Cosmic Horror Madman Eric Malachite, and today we're diving into some Roman and Greek history, our protagonist being Mithridates the Great, the Roman Republic's deadliest enemy, with a script penned by Radu Alexander. So be sure to give Radu your thanks for this script because he does not have socials yet for you to follow. With that said, let's get to it. Mithridates was a man about whom one cannot speak except with concern nor yet pass by in silence. He was ever eager for war, of exceptional bravery, always great in spirit and sometimes in achievement. In strategy, a general. In bodily prowess, a soldier. In hatred to the Romans, a Hannibal. Mithridates, the king of Pontus, took a small kingdom and turned it into a regional power right on Rome's doorstep. He was ambitious, cunning, at times ruthless, and pursued his goals with an unrelenting tunnel vision that ultimately became his downfall. In the end, Mithridates did not best Rome. It had simply become too powerful. But he went down as an unyielding and implacable symbol of defiance that made even his greatest enemies fear and respect him. Mithridates VI Eupator Dionysus, also spelled Mithridates, which will be on screen thanks to our amazing editor Jen, was born circa 135 BC in the kingdom of Pontus, probably in the capital city of Sinope. Pontus is not one of the better known kingdoms of the ancient world, so some of you may be wondering what and where it is. Fortunately for us, the Greek historian and geographer Strabo happened to be from Pontus, so he was able to provide the world with a detailed description of his homeland. Pontus was divided both culturally and geographically into two regions, the coast and the interior, with the two of them physically separated by the Pontic Alps. The coast was rich in food and resources, so most of the big cities were located there, and they were Greek, whereas the Persian culture was more predominant throughout the inland region, which was inhabited by the Cappadocians or Cappadocians. It's pronounced either way, and Paphlagonians. As to who lived there before the Greeks and the Persians came around, not even Strabo was sure, describing them as local tribes, which are on the whole just names to us now. In Mithridates' time, Pontus was a relatively small kingdom on the southern coast of the Black Sea, which was called Pontus Euxinus in Latin, occupying a part of the Anatolian Peninsula, also known as Asia Minor. By the time he would be finished, though, Pontus would occupy almost the entire peninsula, plus territories on the northern, western, and eastern coast, almost enveloping the Black Sea. But that's getting ahead of ourselves a bit. Centuries earlier, Pontus and its southern neighbor, Cappadocia, were part of the Persian satrapy, also called Cappadocia, belonging to the Achaemenid Empire, having been conquered by Darius the Great, bioavailable if you wish. By then, the Persian Empire was itself conquered by Alexander the Even Greater, not to be confused with Sir not appearing in this film. Yes, that is a Monty Python reference. And most of Anatolia became part of his domain. But then Alexander died without naming a successor, so many of his top generals began fighting each other for power, as they will want to do, and ended up dividing the empire into smaller chunks. While all of this was going on, ambitious kings and warlords stepped up, looking to get a piece of the pie for themselves, and that is where the Mithridates lineage comes in. The first Mithridates that we know of ruled over a Greek city in Asia Minor named Cius. Mithridates II was the one in charge when Alexander died, and he stayed in charge by becoming a vassal of Antigonus, one of Alexander's aforementioned generals. However, Antigonus soon changed his mind and had Mithridates II killed in 302 BC. He also wanted to kill his son, Mithridates III, but the latter managed to escape and outlasted Antigonus, who himself died the following year. With no pressing threats, Mithridates III traveled to the northern region of Anatolia, where he founded the kingdom of Pontus. And, to make things less confusing, he pressed the reset button on his lineage and became Mithridates I of Pontus. Here on Biographics, we talk in detail about people who shaped the ancient world. But how can you, in this modern day and age, get noticed in our world without having to challenge all of Rome to do it? That's where the sponsor for today's video, Squarespace, comes in. With Squarespace, you can build a professional website at an affordable price. With flexible, easy-to-use tools, your site can be up and running quicker than the presidency of William Henry Harrison. So, what are these tools? Well, Squarespace has introduced a new guided design system they have called Squarespace Blueprint. With this tool, you can choose from professionally curated layouts and styles to build your site easily, from the ground up. Not only will you create a unique website with a few clicks, but your site will also be fully optimized for all devices. Even getting discovered is fast with Squarespace's integrated SEO tools. If you're a creative and want to take the design of your website further, Squarespace also has the tools for that. Their next-generation web design system, Fluid Engine, gives you the power to customize every detail of your pages by simply dragging and dropping them around. If you want your website to look different on desktop and mobile, you can do that with the Fluid Engine too. But we're not done talking about the tools available to you. Squarespace websites can be equipped with a seamless checkout if you want to use your site to sell your products, your services, or your time. When set up, you can accept payments from credit cards, Apple Pay, and PayPal. In eligible countries, your customers can also buy now and pay later with Afterpay and ClearPay. Interested? Well, head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/biographics to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using the code Biographics. Now back to Past Eric. As you can already tell, there are a lot of Mithridateses involved in the story, but this video is only about one of them, so we'll skip ahead until we reach Mithridates V, Eupator, the father of our subject for today. He had a long reign of approximately 3 decades between 150 and 120 BC. He was married to a Seleucid princess named Laodice VI, and Mithridates VII was their eldest son. Unlike his son, Papa Mithridates was an ally of Rome and helped them during the Third Punic War against Carthage. He was assassinated by poison in 120 BC. Junior was around 13 years old when his father died, so his mother ruled as regent. We hop now briefly into the realm of legend to tell you how Mithridates supposedly made himself immune to all poisons. Some historians claimed that his mother was the one behind his father's death, and that she also wanted to do away with him to either claim power for herself or her other son, who you'll be absolutely shocked to find out was also called Mithridates. That's not confusing at all, is it? Anyway, after a few failed attempts on his life, our Mithridates decided to get the hell out of Dodge and lived for years in the wild where it was safer. Eventually, he came of age and returned to successfully claim his throne and had both his mother and brother removed from their positions, to put it politely. However, this experience left Mithridates so paranoid about being poisoned that he became obsessed with toxicology. Following decades of research, he supposedly developed an elixir out of over 50 different ingredients that was a universal antidote to all known toxins, which became known as Mithridate. He ingested this concoction regularly, and this allowed him to consume deadly substances such as arsenic or venoms with no ill effects. So he's basically Greek Batman. It is said that by the end of his life, Mithridates had become completely immune to all poisons. Unfortunately, he never bothered to write the recipe down, so this miraculous panacea has been lost forever. The reality is that we don't know exactly how Mithridates came to rule on his own. Both his mother and brother simply disappeared from the historical record around 115 BC. Whether they were killed, imprisoned, or something else happened entirely, we can't say. But the end result is the same. Mithridates VII, Eupator, was now the king of Pontus. Right off the bat, Mithridates had grand ambitions of growing his empire, and it didn't take him very long because the first opportunity immediately presented itself on a silver platter. The cities and kingdoms on the Crimean Peninsula on the northern coast of the Black Sea were under threat by the Scythians. They didn't really have any good options available to them, so it was more a matter of choosing the one that was the least worst. Therefore, they were willing to give up their independence and accept the rule of Pontus if Mithridates could protect them from the Scythian kingdom led by King Silurus, who I do not know how to pronounce his name because I couldn't find a guide, so Have at it in the comments, pronunciation police. You're welcome. Intended to conquer all of Crimea. Mithridates said sure and went on a warpath, although the actual warring seems to have been done by one of his generals named Diophantus. The Pontic army geared up and marched to Crimea, and since it was on the way, it also subjugated Colchis, a region on the eastern coast of the Black Sea, part of the modern-day Georgia. After that, the Bosporan kingdom on the northeast coast, which was willingly handed over by its king, Parisates. He knew that he did not have the money or soldiers to keep the invading barbarians at bay, so life under Mithridates was preferable since at least Pontus was a Greek civilization like them. The main destination was Chersonesus, the Crimean city that originally requested aid from Mithridates. They also provided the most detailed account of this conflict, thanks to an inscription honoring Diophantus. It says that as soon as the Pontic general arrived in Crimea, he was faced with a surprise attack from Palicus, the son of Silurus, and the new king of Scythia. Diophantus was victorious, thus becoming the first foreign invader to conquer the Scythians. However, the honor went to Mithridates since the boss man collected the credit, even if he wasn't actually there. After warding off the initial strike, Pontus launched a counterattack in the interior of the Crimean Peninsula, deep in Scythian territory. At this point, the ancient account becomes vaguer, simply stating that Diophantus achieved many great things in a short time. The general managed to conquer several Scythian cities, including the capital of Neapolis, and once that was done, all the others surrendered. Crimea was now part of the kingdom of Pontus, so with his job done, Diophantus returned home. This, however, did not last long, or maybe it lasted decades, we're not sure to be honest, since no specific years are mentioned, but at one point the Scythians rebelled against Mithridates, and this time they allied themselves with a group of Samaritan people called, and I could not find a definitive way to pronounce this, but I believe it is Rolian? Correct me if I'm wrong once again. Rolani. Diophantus made his way north once more with an army of 6,000 soldiers matched up against 50,000 Scythians and Rolani. Despite the numbers' disadvantage, the Pontic general defeated his enemies soundly thanks mainly to superior weapons, training, and military skill, and the Scythians were forced to come to terms again. On his way back home again, Diophantus made a pit stop to solve another issue in the Bosporan kingdom, which was experiencing seller's remorse. Parisates, the king who willingly abdicated power to Mithridates, had been assassinated by a group led by a guy named Samachus. They wanted independence again now that the Scythians were no longer a threat, but the no-takesies-backsies rule was in effect, and Pontus was not about to give up any territory without a fight. Diophantus had to wait until Mithridates sent him reinforcements, but once he did, the general crushed the revolt, captured Samachus, and sent him to Pontus, where we assume many unpleasant things happened to him. Although most of the Black Sea coastline was now either part of the Kingdom of Pontus or a protectorate that paid tribute, that was not enough to quell the ambitions of Mithridates. He began looking south and west to the rest of the Anatolian peninsula, and he liked what he saw. There was just one problem though, because now he wanted something that somebody else wanted as well: Rome. At the time, there was one other power in Asia Minor, the Kingdom of Bithynia, ruled by King Nicomedes III. Although he and Mithridates weren't exactly drinking buddies, they also saw no reason to fight each other. For the time being, there was more value in them becoming allies than enemies. So, around 180